Hey everyone, welcome back, and today let's solve this problem 128, longest consecutive sequence from Leetcode. We're given an unsorted array of integers nums. Return the length of the longest consecutive elements sequence, and you must write an algorithm that runs in O of n time. Also, we're given examples. Here we have nums equals 104 to 101, 3, 2. The output is 4 because we can find the sequence from 1 to 4, which is 1, 2, 3, and 4. The longest consecutive subsequence, or sorry, element sequence is 1, 2, 3, 4, and therefore the length of the sequence is 4, which is the return value. So how do we solve this problem? Well, let's draw a solution. Let's try to picture what is happening here. So given the array nums, correct, array nums, it has the value 100, it has the value 100, 4, 200, 1, 3, and 2, correct. So the most obvious way, and the way we're mostly familiar with as a human, is to sort whatever the array is given, right? So we can say, well, let's sort it naturally: 1, 2, 3, 4, 100, and 200. So we can figure out from here that we have a pattern of the numbers occurring to each other. For example, 1, 2, 3, and 4 is a sequence. We can call 100 is a sequence and 200 is a sequence, but we cannot say these two is a sequence because 100 and 200 are not next to each other, although it looks like natural to see 100 and 200 together. So we cannot say 100 and 200 are the sequence, right? So for example, if we want to say, well, 100 has a sequence, it needs to have whatever comes before 100 and whatever comes after the 100. So it should have, if it has 99 and 101 together, then maybe we can call it, or definitely we can call it, has a sequence. But in our case, it has no sequence. So basically, sequence is a series of numbers, or the range of numbers happening each other or occurring each other. But the time complexity is going to be, because we sorted, it's already log n, and also we are traversing through the elements for at most one time after the sorting, so it should be n log n, which is the time complexity. So how do we do this problem in linear time? In the problem, we can see that the algorithm must run in O of n time, correct? So this is not a valid solution, and what we see here is not a valid solution. Well, so how do we do this better? What are the ways that we can use to do it better? Turns out there is a way to get around with this. Okay, so, and before we jump to the linear solution, I want to show you something from this cheat sheet, which is the Leetcode patterns cheat sheet. So if we see here, maybe we can get some hint, right? Even before going to pursue that, maybe let's see what we can do here. Okay, so it's sub array, subset, or options. We can do dynamic programming here and there, right? But there's no information about that. But here, if you see else, map or set for O of one time and O of n space. See here. So, well, this is O of one time, but we can also do this in O of n time, right? By using the sets or the map. In our case, maybe we should use sets. So let's see how we can do that by using the sets. Okay. So going back here, so how do we recognize a number, or maybe how do we recognize the start of a series? For example, if we have the unsorted array here, how do we know if 100 is the start of a series, of the new series? Well, as we have discussed earlier, for any series, or for any start value, start value does not have n minus 1, correct? Because if it has n minus 1 value, it is not start value, the first value, right? So in order for us to know that if this is a start value, it should not have the previous value and it should have the value after it. But in order for us to understand, let's try to draw a picture. So we can say, well, we have, this is, let's say this is 0, and we have 1 2 3 4 here, right? 1 2 3 4, and another number is 100, which is a little bit farther, and 200, right, which is basically an extension of the fact that we already established here. So going back to this idea of recognizing the first value in a sequence, so if 100 is the first value in the sequence, we can check if there is a value before 100 and if there is a value after 100. And similarly for 200, if this is a start value of this new sequence, we can check if there's a number before 200, right? For example, let's say if we are checking for number 4, which is actually what happens here in the unsorted array. If we start from the first element, we definitely get to 4 in the second iteration, right? So we can say, well, we get to the number 4, and we check if there is a previous value, which is if there is a previous value that could potentially make 4 a part of the sequence, and we're gonna check that from the unsorted array, correct? So we check 4 in the array, and we see that we have 3 here, correct? So that means we know this is not the first value. So we move to the second we move to the second number, and then if it has the, we have to check the array again to see if it has the previous value of this number, which is number 3, and it does. So that means this is also not the first value in the sequence. So we move to the another number, and then again check if it has a previous value. Actually it does, which is 1. So this is also not the first element. So we go to the number 1, and then we check if it has the previous value. It does not, which is 0. So therefore we know that this is actually the start value of our sequence 1. So this is how we are going to build an algorithm. All right, let's try to code locally, then we'll finally submit our code in Leetcode to check if we did it right. So as usual, I have started on my template. As you can see, I have a Google Collaboratory template, and I'm going to build everything from scratch. So first of all, I have the class solution, and then so what I'm gonna do next is I'm going to create a function which is def. So let's try to match with the Leetcode. So when we submit, it's gonna accept us longest consecutive self norm list and integer as an output, right? So maybe we can just copy this and okay, so def longest consecutive and And then we can say self nums, which is a list of integer. Okay, so we have longest consecutive self nums list of integers, and so the return type is going to be it's going to be a list, right? List of the integer. Let's double check that one more time. Actually, return type is the integer, which is the length of the sequence. So we're just gonna return length, not the list. So we can delete this integer, and let me check if this works. Then we can build our algorithm. Okay, it's running, and we're still waiting for this to be connected. Looks like everything's working fine. So first thing first, what we need to do is we need to create a set for the given numbers, right? So create a set for the given numbers. So I'm gonna call num underscore set equals set of the numbers, which is the input numbers here, right? Then the next step is to initialize our longest sequence. So that is going to be longest sequence. I'm just going to write longest underscore seq equals 0. So that is a variable. And now what we're going to do is for every item, so for every item in nums, so what we need to do is check if it is the start of the sequence of a new sequence. That is, so how do we do that? Well, for I in nums, we can say if I minus 1, like we saw in the diagram before, if there is a previous value not in num set, right? So like we saw earlier, if the value is not in the if the previous value is not in the set, so what we are going to do next is that we know that this is, so if the previous value is not in the set, so we know this is not the first element of the sequence, right? So we can say length equals, actually if the previous item is not in num set, that means this is the first element, not this is not. This is the first element in the sequence, so we can say length equals 0. Now what we're going to check is, so we're going to create a loop to check for the length of the num set, or check for the length of the sequence in num set, right? So how do you do that? Well, while we can use while loop, while I plus length, in num set, right? While the next means corresponding item is in the num set, we know that we need to increase the counter of the length equals 1. So what this code is doing here is, actually maybe I can say, well, this is, let's make it easier. Next equals I plus length, right? And then here next. While next is in num set, we can increase the counter of the length, correct? And so we need to run this loop as long as there is the next item in the num set, starting from the ith position, correct? And when there is no next element in the num set, so we're going to break the loop and then return the longest value, longest of the sequence. So longest, so find the longest sequence. Well, we actually have a function in Python. We could just say longest equals longest underscore sequence equals, so it is going to be the maximum of maximum in between the length and what length and the longest sequence, correct? And finally we can return the longest, right? So you can return the longest and it is going to be longest sequence. Well, and here what we can do is, so we can create an instance of this class solution equals solution and run it. So we have created an instance of the class solution, so we're going to build a main function, and in this shell I'm going to create a main. So if underscore name underscore equal quotation underscore main underscore, then what we're going to do is nums. So let's first check the given problem or the given example. So 100 4 200 1 3 2, and so now what we can do is answer equals solution dot the method, and it is going to take the nums and we can print the answer, right? Let's see why I'm getting this highlight solution is possibly unbound. It's because it's we created the instance in the above cell, but we can just ignore it for now. If you want, you can just create the instance in this cell as well. So let's see what happens here. Okay, looks like it's trapped in a loop. Okay, so we made a mistake here. It should be actually outside the outside in this indentation. So let's try to run it again and let's see what happens. Okay, still it's trapped. Okay, the problem was with the variable we created before. So we shouldn't do I plus length or the next equals I plus length, because it was in the while loop. So when we created next variable outside the outside the while loop, it only counted for the first iteration and it got stuck. So therefore we need to do I plus length in the while loop. Okay, so that was the problem. So as you can see, the program works as expected. We have the highest sequence 4 of 1 2 3 and 4, correct? So just for the verification purpose, we can create another test case. So if underscore name underscore equal quotation underscore main underscore, and so this time I'm going to create let's use from the example, okay, so that way we can check the answer. So here we can paste it, and again answer equals solution dot longest consecutive, and then it can take nums, then finally print answer. Okay, 9, because there's only, I think it has everything. If you notice, 0 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8, yeah, up to 8 from starting from 0, right? So as expected, it returned 9. So let's we did this. So now it's time to submit our code in the Leetcode. Okay, I'm just going to copy this and submit to the Leetcode. So I'm going to paste here. Okay, I pasted from the Google Colab. So now I'm going to run it, and it should run without any error. Let's solve it. Let's submit it. Very cool. As you can see, it works totally fine. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one.